to News Central Television. I am Lekon Onobanjo. The headlines at this hour. President Tinubu to attend Diamond Jubilee celebrations of the Nigerian Defense Academy in Kaduna. Students confirmed as first death in protests over postponed elections. Lawyer says Gabon ex-president's family suffer abuse in aftermath of government overthrow. Details to come your way shortly. News Central now at this hour begins in Nigeria, where President Bola Tinubu has departed the nation's capital, Abuja, to attend the grand finale of a week-long activities to mark the 60th anniversary of the Nigerian Defense Academy in Kaduna. On February 5, the Academy unveiled an emblem and a crest commemorating 60 years since its establishment as part of activities marking the Diamond Jubilee celebrations, which commenced 3 days earlier at the NDA Auditorium in Afaka. Present were graduates of the NDA, former commandants, serving and retired military officers, operatives of other security and paramilitary organizations, as well as representatives of institutions, including the special guest of honor, retired Major General Rabiu Aliyu, who is a member of the Pioneer Regular Course 1 of 1964. In the meantime, Nigeria's Apex Bank says the nation's foreign exchange market is currently on a rebound as it has received over $1 billion in liquidity following strict policies put in place to stabilize forex rates. CBN Governor Olayemi Cardoso made this known during an interactive session with the Senate Committee on Banking, Insurance and Other Financial Institutions aimed at updating lawmakers on reasons for the free fall of the Naira. Idong Joseph reports.
The appearance of the senior officials of the nation's Apex Bank and members of Nigeria's economic team, including the Minister of Agriculture, is coming barely 3 days after the Senate had summoned the CBN governor to give an explanation on the state of the nation's economy. Lawmakers say they are determined to get to the root cause of the receding value of the Naira in the exchange market so as to stop this downward trend. Responding to the myriad of economic challenges the country is currently facing, the governor of Nigeria's central bank says that comprehensive strategies have been put in place to address the current exchange rate volatility being witnessed. He says that with over $1 billion forex inflow in recent days, it is evident that the policies are working.
For example, upwards of the past few days, we have had over $1 billion that have come into the market. Over $1 billion. And this, quite frankly, is the answer to the question, because the question was raised as to how do we know that your policies are working, and in fact we were challenged to say that in fact they are not. And I would argue that with the numbers speaking and saying what is going on.
He adds that for the measures to be sustainable at stopping the free fall of the Naira, Nigerians must reduce their appetite for the consumption of foreign-made goods and services.
Honestly, CBN has no magic wand. We do not have. Our responsibility is in the process. If foreign exchange comes into us, we manage it in a way that is in the best interest of the country, and we do not have excessive volatility. Okay, that's one. Our argument on the demand side is that we as Nigerians also must work together to moderate demand. Where there are opportunities for us to substitute locally, so we should.
On food security, the Minister of Agriculture blamed the situation on the failure of the past administration to not plan properly for the wet season farming. Also, the Minister of Finance called for an open market, saying that measures must be put in place to prevent end market monopoly.
I don't think there was any impact or any direct intervention by government against the 2023 cultivation. And that also impacted on the quantum of harvest that we had in 2023.
At this period of reform and vulnerability, market capture, state capture, those with the power and dominance of markets should not be allowed to use that.
With the Senate expressing worry over the situation in the country, as well as the free fall of the naira, lawmakers said quick solutions from the Apex Bank are needed to stabilize the naira and restore confidence to the nation's economy. In Abuja for News Central, I am Idong Joseph.
Looking at Nigeria's aviation sector, unfriendly cost of air transportation in Nigeria may not be getting better anytime soon as airline operators express concern over rising operational costs in addition to surge in the price of aviation fuel. Aviation fuel now sells for 1,300 naira per litre. Spokesman of the airline operators, Obiora Okonkwo, made this known in a statement on Friday. The operators traced the major challenge confronting the sector to the fluctuation in foreign exchange, which has pushed one United States dollar for 1,400 naira in an exchange. Air passengers, according to the statement, are already exhausted and may not be able to meet up with any further increase in airfares. The statement urges immediate government intervention to save numerous airlines from total collapse. Away from that, Senior Special Assistant to President Bola Tinubu on the school feeding program, Yetunde Adeniji, says the federal government is implementing new strategies to ensure the success and sustainability of the school feeding program as part of the reform ordered by the president. While addressing participants at a two-day strategic stakeholders meeting on the roadmap to the future of the implementation of school feeding program in Nigeria, Adeniji said the current administration has assessed the initial commitments and national plans for the school feeding program and identified areas for improvement. Adeniji emphasized the importance of stakeholders embracing the government's innovations and measures aimed at enhancing the program's implementation. Now, Nigeria is facing a host of serious problems, including high unemployment rate, terrorism, poverty, an obsolete educational system, and a high illiteracy rate. The cultural imbalance that exists in the country is also a major concern, with deep divisions between different ethnic and religious groups. The rate of unemployment in Nigeria is very high, especially among the youth, and this is leading to frustration and unrest. The poverty rate is also very high, with many people living in extreme poverty. In terms of education, the system is outdated and does not meet the needs of the modern world. In the meantime, with the rising cost of building materials, inconsistency in Nigeria's forex market, plus the removal of fuel subsidy, residents of the nation's capital have raised an alarm over the increasing cost of house rents. Some of those who spoke with News Central in Abuja said they could no longer cope and fear they may be rendered homeless soon. Marvelous Obomanu brings us this special report from the nation's capital in Abuja.
Abuja, Nigeria's capital, is the symbol of the nation's unity, as people from diverse cultures, ethnicities, and religions now call it home. In recent times, staying in FCT is becoming untenable, as many say they cannot continue to service the high demands of landlords and estate developers. With the housing sector booming because of the high population of citizens, estate developers now hold sway, renting out houses to those who can afford to build their own, many of them living off tenants. In Abuja, Nigeria's capital, residents are expressing worry over the high cost of accommodation. For those who cannot afford to pay house rent within the city centers, end up coming to local communities where they can afford cheaper accommodation. Where I am is called Mpape, a suburb of the Federal Capital Territory. Now, when you look around this environment, you'll be forced to ask yourself, how good or comfortable will it be to get an accommodation in this kind of place? You are about to find out.
This place is the most horrible place a man can live, in terms of dumping of refuse and also in terms of sanitation, because the gutters are just close to your doorsteps if you are living in Face Me and Face You. And also, it depends where you get your accommodation. Some places you find that the toilet is just right inside the compound.
When it comes to the hygiene here, it's quite poor. It's very, very poor. And for someone who is looking at the hygiene aspect of it here, I'm not sure you would want to stay in somewhere like this. Like you can see around me here, you can see the drainage system is quite poor. You can see refuse bin is just exposed to the environment. This is very bad pollution already.
As residents in the suburbs express worry over the rising cost of accommodation, the situation is the same for their counterparts who reside within the city centers.
The way the real estate company and landlords are making house expensive, like accommodation expensive here in Abuja, I don't think the layman can stay in Abuja. You understand? For instance, staying in an apartment that you pay 700,000 annually per year, and an increment, we know, okay, yeah, we know the country is hard, the economic is bad, everybody's going through one or two situations or no, you understand? But as a landlord, you need to be considerate also.
The accommodation in Abuja is terrible, seriously terrible. If you are earning, like, let me tell you, I'm a civil servant now, I'm working. If you are earning at least less than 200 or 200 and above, you can't be able to stay in Abuja because the high cost of living in terms of accommodation is very high.
In the course of our investigation, News Central identified one tenant who lost his life following bouts of depression as his house rent in the Gwarimpa area of the city was increased from 800,000 naira to 1.7 million naira, an increase of over 200%.
It was my breath that they took my breath away. I'm talking, it's not me that is talking. I don't know.
You just woke up one morning and we saw letters pasted on our doors, for those that weren't around. Us that were around, I received mine, And, looking at the content of the letter, we saw over 100% increase on what we usually pay.
Tenants in the apartment say the notice of increase came as a shock. However, there was more bad news as the troubled neighbor absent-mindedly found himself run over by a truck while in deep thought along the road.
And I never knew about the letter. I never got the chance to tell me. So when I got to his house, that is where I am right now, that was when his co-neighbors now brought out a letter. All of them, there were like 7, 8 of them, brought his own letter to me and said, "Mommy, this was what Tope got this morning that made him absent-minded." I said, "What?" I now read it. I saw the content of the letter. Very disturbing, very highly professional.
We usually do this stuff, like we write tenancy agreements and we give to people. So we usually include a rent review clause in the event the landlord intends to increase the rent. So I read the notice. To say the least, it is very oppressive. How can you increase the rent from 800,000 to 1,700,000? It is illogical.
The mother of the deceased said she has tried to reach out to the landlord and the lawyer who served the notice, but they have refused to grant her audience. Many residents will be hoping that something is done as quick as possible to arrest the exploitation of tenants by landlords in the federal capital. In Abuja for News Central, Marvelous Obomanu.
Also in north-central Nigeria, residents of Jos, capital of Plateau State, have urged the government to wade into the harsh economic situation that currently defines the daily life of the Nigerian citizen. Chizoba Anionwe was at Terminus Market in the state capital and sent in this report.
My own lobby say always to come and ask what is happening in the market. what is happening in the market and no solution. Me, I don't want to be talking anytime again. I no go talk anytime again. If there's no solution, anytime when I come to this market, man, I no near me.
This is one of the many issues Nigeria's economic meltdown over the past few months has brought on the table. Protests have been held in some cities. Government has also made some promises, but the effects are far from being seen. Except for a few wealthy people, which is insignificant in number, most Nigerians are now united in the same struggle of meeting up with soaring prices with diminishing income.
This thing is painful. And they will always be talking about this. Nobody will say he listen to us. Now come to market and say we talk am. No, nothing come out. It pay me.
Higher cost too much. See ugu where you go buy 2,000, then go tell you say na 10,000. E no cost. Ogusi where we dey buy am to 2,000, then go tell you say 5,000. E no cost.
By this time, Kevi is supposed to dey 70,000. Normal price, but now it's 120,000. So nothing is easy.
Comparing the cost of foodstuffs a few months ago with what is on the ground today paints a picture of what the reality is.
God, I'm serving till I die. Now I have to serve. No matter how things go, God will lead me to my destination. God will help me.
The salary, of course, has not been increased for, a number of years. And of course, whatever you receive now, given the high cost of foreign currency, particularly the dollar, the salary you were receiving 2-3 years ago cannot even buy half of what you used to buy. That is in this present economy.
What this portends for our country and the economy may not be palatable.
There is a hope. Hope is if the government really wants to do the right thing. The one advantage of the subsidy withdrawal is that a lot of revenue is accrued to the government. Government is getting a lot of money because of that subsidy. Those wastages are no more there. Now, what do you do with the wastage? The extra money you now get, once they are channeled properly, that will be all.
It is no longer news how bad the cost of living has become in Nigeria. Here in Plateau State, it is not a different case, as other parts of the country are also feeling the same pain. Now, what they ask for is that government at all levels do what is necessary and very fast to improve the means of livelihood of citizens. In Jos for News Central, I am Chizoba Anionwe.
And to discuss this and the looming strike by the Nigerian Labour Congress, we're joined by public affairs analyst Jide Ojo. Jide Ojo, thank you so much for joining us on the news.
Yeah, good afternoon.
Yeah, it's a pleasure having you around. So we can see that the economic situation in the country is actually biting hard on Nigerians. Hike in rent fees, hike in pump price, high cost of commodity price, and we are living in an unstable market, and a lot of Nigerians are complaining. What would you say are the key factors that have contributed to the current plight of Nigerians?
Well, the key factors are known to many. We know that from May 29, there was removal of subsidy, and with the removal of subsidy came also the floating of exchange rate. These two are responsible for the current hiking cost of living. Aside from that, there's a high level of insecurity, which has also chased away many farmers from their farm. And this, again, impacted on food security. So when you look at these three factors, removal of subsidy, floating of exchange rates, and then insecurity, you cannot but experience what many of us in Nigeria are facing. However, it needs to be stated that this is not peculiar to Nigeria. In many other countries, they are also going through similar wave. And that is why government, as part of measures to cushion the effect of these harsh economic realities, is planning to increase what the president promised is living wage. And just recently, the committee of 37 was set up to come up with another new minimum wage. But that alone will not solve the problem because only less than 20% of the total population of Nigeria works for government, whether you are talking of federal, state, or local government. Most people are in the informal sector. They are not even in the organized private sector. And they may not, even for those who are into trade and investment, they may not be able to pay the minimum wage, whatever it is, given the fact that, as it were, only, I don't know what percentage I will put, but not many state government is paying the 30,000 minimum wage, and not many organized private sector is paying the 30,000 minimum wage, which is about to be reviewed upwards. So even if an alliance labor is asking for 200,000 minimum wage, who will pay that? Is it somebody who cannot pay 30,000 that will now pay 200,000 minimum wage? So we are in for a very rough time, and my sympathy goes to the family of the man in Gwarimpa that his rent was increased from 700,000 to 1.7 million. That's the reality we face in Abuja, and that's why it's quite tough for many residents of Abuja trying to cope with this kind of situation.
But then,
because now the rent has increased, but the minimum wage has not even been increased yet. So just imagine if the minimum wage is now announced, what the house owner, the landlords will not do with residents of Abuja under the guise that everybody will get minimum wage, which
well,
is not.
Jide, aside the plan to increase the minimum wage for, well, federal government workers anyway, the government has tried as much as possible to bring on board different measures to cushion the effect. For instance, trying to see that the refineries are working, pushing the CBN to, roll out monetary policies that could help deal with the issue of the FX and the clearing of the FX backlog. We've heard of palliatives being provided for vulnerable citizens in the society, and just recently release of grains from the food bank. So why is it that we've not, of course, some are still in the working, but why is it that we've not started seeing in trickles or in bits a change or a cushioning in the economic situation for the country? And for how long will Nigerians have to wait before they begin to see a bit of change?
I wish I have the answer. You said all this. Let me pick them one after the other. When the president announced in his nationwide broadcast on July 31, 2023, he made a number of commitments, most of which has not been fulfilled. In October, he made another round of commitment, most of which has not been fulfilled. Now, we are the CNG buses, 3,000 of which he said he was going to provide between August and March 2024. Not one is on the street as we speak, or on the road rather. He's promised to support 75 enterprises, mega enterprises with 1 billion naira loan at 9% interest rate. He promised to support about 50 million to provide 50 million naira worth of loan to about maybe 5 million people under the guise of micro, small, and medium enterprises. You have all of those breakdown. How many of them have been fulfilled? Today in Abuja here, a kilo of gas is going for 1,300 naira. And then that's the CNG you are encouraging Nigerians to go and be buying. Meanwhile, fuel is still like 660 and all of that. So it's even better for you to keep your petrol vehicle than to say you want to go and convert your car to use CNG buses, to use compressed natural gas. Because the price of compressed natural gas, which should have been made cheap as a better alternative, is now more expensive than PMS. So the wage award that was promised the Nigeria Labour Congress workers of federal government has only been paid twice. This wage award was supposed to be from September till the new minimum wages arrived at. And we are talking of just 35,000 increase on the salary of workers. But the federal government hasn't paid this 35,000 more than twice. Aside from that, as I speak with you, federal workers haven't gotten their January salary. Today is 10th of February. They said they are migrating for IPPIS to give means or whatever. And you know January is the longest month for any worker, given the fact that the last salary was collected in December. So people are going through very, very difficult times. And God having a coordinated effort. If the exchange rate has been kept stable and below $1,000, 1,000 naira to a dollar, you will not be having this kind of price fluctuations that we have. You yourself will be able to testify that insecurity has not abated. With kidnapping on daily basis, what some newspapers have called a kidnapping epidemic. So people cannot even sleep well, they cannot rest well. Everybody is in a state of suspended animation.
Now,
As
Jide,
I said
now that, of course, we see that these are the issues that has actually forced the Nigeria Labour Congress and the TUC to issue a 14-day ultimatum for industrial action in the country. So at this time, what are the specific and critical steps or actions that the government must take to address these issues?
part of it is what they did a couple of days back, releasing how many tons of grains that they promised to release to the market. But when you exhaust your food reserve without replacing it, when there is now another round of hunger protest, what are you going to release? We need to deal with the issue of insecurity more. I'm saying we should double down on insecurity so that at least farmers can stay back on their ancestral land and farm and produce more for consumption. I heard Yemi Cardoso saying that people should consume more locally made food so that there will be no pressure on our foreign exchange. Please, how do you do that? We want to eat Nigeria. We don't want foreign rice. I prefer to eat ofada rice and local grains. But when you cannot even afford it, because the bandits have chased away farmers from the farm, you are now forced to now import food into the country, and you are not going to use naira to import this food. You are going to use dollar. Okay, federal government, as part of the palliative measure, they bought off most of the grains. Recall that about October, November, 50 billion was advanced to each of the 36 states. 20 billion out of that was meant to be a grant and 30 billion to be a loan. Now, it is from the local market that governors in respective states bought their grains. There has not been replacement, and that's why price of this grain have gone up because we have not been able to produce sufficiently. So at the end of the day, while workers, federal, state, and organized private sector may be looking at the new minimum wage in the horizon,
all right,
what does people like me who are working, who are into self-employment, what do we live on? So there is need to curb insecurity.
Okay.
There is need to diversify the economy. there is need to also stabilize the exchange rate of the naira. You cannot lead naira to the volatility of demand and supply.
All right, Jide Ojo.
Even the Port Harcourt refinery and all the other refineries, none of them is functional as we speak.
All right, Jide Ojo, thank you so much. A lot of questions that need answers at this time, but then we appreciate your contribution on the news. Coming up on the news, Defense Minister visits troops in Goma amidst increased fighting. Details of this and others to come your way shortly. So stay with us. The news continues in West Africa, where Nigerian Beninese Advocacy Group has called for a Nigerian-Benin Permanent Joint Commission to help tackle challenges between both countries, as well as promote trade and cultural relations. The groups, while making the call at Nigeria's Ministry of Foreign Affairs in Abuja, said both countries can benefit immensely from the commission, which will have tremendous benefits to citizens. Amadine Uyi reports.
With relations spanning hundreds of years prior to independence, Nigeria and Benin Republic share a lot in common through historical collaboration and cultural affiliation. Crisscrossing several states of the country, there lies immense benefits for a Nigeria-Benin collaboration, especially through the establishment of a permanent joint commission.
The establishment of the proposed Nigeria and Benin Republic Joint Commission is quite apt and important in leveraging the existing warm relation between the two countries to a strategic level partnership, which will manifest itself in building robust and sustainable people-to-people and business-to-business relations among the people of Nigeria and Benin Republic.
As the Nigerian Beninese Advocacy Group visited the Ministry of Foreign Affairs in Abuja, they say several opportunities are bound for both countries that have remained untapped and can be effectively exploited if a permanent joint commission is established between both nations. They say this is evident through several joint commissions in place between Nigeria and other nations.
This proposal has been inspired by the successes of existing permanent joint commission between Nigeria and her neighboring countries, specifically Niger Republic. We know that we are having a little crisis, but that crisis will have escalated more if there are no structure and institution of a permanent joint commission between the two countries. We know what that permanent commission has been doing.
The Minister of Foreign Affairs commended the initiative, however informed the group that a joint commission already exists, though it has not been as active as expected.
This issue of the Nigeria-Benin Joint Commission is one that is on the front burner. It's something that we have been discussing. But it's also important to note from our records here that a Nigeria-Benin Joint Commission does exist. It's just gone silent. It's already in existence. It went sort of, I wouldn't want to use the word comatose, but for lack of a better word, it slowed down in 2014, and it's one that needs to be resuscitated.
He says the commission can help the sub-region address several challenges affecting both nations like insecurity and underdevelopment.
The issue of security is increasingly tied to deficiencies in development, in standards of living in border areas, because this is where sometimes insurgencies and unrest hide to incubate and then come up.
Nigeria shares a 778-kilometer land and maritime border with Benin Republic. This traverses the 6 states of Lagos, Ogun, Oyo, Kwara, Niger, and Kebbi. In Abuja for News Central, I am Amadine Uyi.
Let's now head to Gabon, where we understand former President Ali Bongo Demba's wife, Sylvia, is suffering degrading treatment in custody while her son, Nuruddin, is being tortured. This was disclosed by a family lawyer, Francois Zemere. Sylvia, who holds French citizenship, has been charged with money laundering and was initially held under house arrest before being jailed in mid-October. Nuruddin is also in jail, charged with corruption and embezzling public funds. Both were detained for weeks under political decisions and have not been able to meet their lawyer, who has traveled twice to Gabon and was prevented from visiting them. We head to Senegal, where presidential candidates have approached the Supreme Court in Dakar to lodge an appeal seeking the annulment of President Macky Sall's decree to postpone the presidential election ballot originally scheduled for February 25.
Aujourd'hui apporter un début de solution, mais je ne pense pas qu'elle soit la seule. Mais c'était à faire. On pourrait penser qu'il y aurait peut-être encore un peu de justice dans notre pays, on n'est pas sûr. Mais au moins, on va le faire parce qu'il faut le faire. Mais la bataille qui va sans doute faire réagir Monsieur le Président Macky Sall, c'est la bataille populaire.
Et qui met en danger la stabilité du pays. C'est pour cela que nous avons constitué des avocats pour l'attaquer. Parce que Macky Sall est en train d'enfreindre toutes les lois, et particulièrement la Constitution.
Pour la durée du mandat et le nombre de mandats, la Constitution ne peut pas être modifiée. C'est pour ça qu'il est absolument essentiel que nous obtenions l'annulation de ce décret, ce qui redonnerait vigueur ipso facto au décret qui a convoqué le corps électoral et relancerait le processus.
Now, a student was killed during protests over the postponement of presidential elections in St. Louis in northern Senegal. Head of the Geography Club at Gaston Berger University official disclosed this to journalists. According to him, the student died from injuries suffered in the protests in St. Louis. Our hospital employee also confirmed the incident. The student's death marks the first since demonstrations broke out over the past week. Let's also tell you that DR Congo's Defense Minister Jean-Pierre Bemba has visited Goma to offer support to the armed forces and the population affected by the fighting. The situation remains tense in the east of the Democratic Republic of Congo, where fighting has intensified in recent days between government forces and the M23 rebellion. Thousands of panicked inhabitants of Sake, a town considered strategic on the road to Goma, fled on Wednesday to escape the bombardment, adding to the hundreds of thousands of people displaced already in the outskirts of the North Kivu capital.
La population, qu'elle puisse être sereine, le chef de l'État ne dort pas, le commandant suprême ne dort pas, il, jour et nuit, il suit la situation ici et comme je vous le dis, tout est mis en œuvre au niveau de nos forces armées pour pouvoir en faire en sorte que soit Sake, soit Goma et que ça soit protégé et que tous les territoires qui appartiennent à la RDC, Rutshuru, Massissi, puissent être libérés. C'est un message de réconfort, de soutien, également à nos forces armées, à nos amis des forces qui sont ici présentes, la SADC, les compagnies privées qui sont ici, nos frères Ouazalendo qui se battent également, que nous félicitons pour la défense de notre territoire. Ça nous a permis également de voir les blessés de guerre, de soutenir également les familles qui sont endeuillées, plus de 12 familles qui sont aujourd'hui endeuillées.
Now in East Africa, the United Nations says the war ravaging Sudan could leave over 700,000 children severely malnourished this year, warning tens of thousands could die unless aid is dramatically increased. UNICEF has also urged the world to stop turning a blind eye to the catastrophe sparked by the 10-month civil war.
Days ago today, a wave of atrocities were unleashed upon the children of Sudan. Here is some of what's happened in that 300 days. First, the world's largest displacement of children has been seen in Sudan. 4 million children have been displaced. That's just over 13,000 children displaced every single day for the past 300 days. Safety gone, worldly possessions gone, hope fading. The consequences of the past 300 days mean that more than 700,000 children are likely to suffer the most dangerous form of malnutrition this year. UNICEF won't be able to treat more than 300,000 of those without improved access and without additional support. In that case, tens of thousands would likely die. But there's been a five-fold increase in verified cases of killing, sexual violence and recruitment from a year ago. That equates to a terrified number of children killed, raped or recruited. And these numbers...
A break will do here. When we return, we'll bring you the rest of the stories. Don't go away. From other continents, we tell you that a 6-year-old Palestinian girl who went missing after the family's car came under fire in war-ravaged Gaza was found dead on Saturday. The health ministry said the last time Hind Rajab had been seen was about 2 weeks ago when she was surrounded by dead relatives after becoming trapped in the vehicle as they tried to flee Gaza City as Israeli forces advanced. A number of family members made the grim discovery when they went to Gaza City's Tel Al-Hawa area looking for the car near a petrol station where it had last been spotted. Earlier this week, family members had said the group found their way into the path of Israeli tanks and were fired on as they tried to flee. In other news, Lunar New Year, one of the most important celebrations in Asia culture, marks the beginning of the New Year calendar year with family gatherings, a day and a day of rest. It is also known as Chinese New Year or Spring Festival. It is celebrated by millions all across the world. Lunar New Year starts February 10 and ends with the Lantern Festival on February 24. In China, the public holiday was last from February 10 to 17 this year. The Chinese zodiac, or Shengshou, is a repeating 12-year cycle of animal signs and their attributes based on the lunar calendar. The Lunar New Year marks the transition from one animal to another. This year is known as the Year of the Dragon. In business, Nigeria is an import-dependent nation, yet not a shipping nation, despite its huge contribution to global trade. Playing marginally in the industry, it is a record that no fewer than 90% of shipping companies owned by Nigerians have either completely shut down their operations or barely are struggling to survive. With an estimated annual cargo of about 150 million metric tons generated and with freight earnings in excess of $5 billion in her international trade transactions, 95% rather of this income is earned by foreigners, with job deprivation to a lot of Nigerians. The same dominance by foreigners is also extended to the domestic shipping market, where an estimated $3 billion annual marine-related spending in the oil and gas production activities are virtually earned by foreigners.
Look at the number of vessels that call in the Nigerian ports. Enormous. And are they Nigerian-owned vessels? No. Are they crewed by Nigerians? No. Are they owned by Nigerians? No. So that is a big part of investment that they need to look into. With this, you have the numbers. Look at the numbers. 95% of what comes into this economy is through the marine and blue economy. So I think the minister needs to look in depth as to how we can channel investments, or maybe the PPP, private partnership. There are a lot of indigenes who also have funds to invest, but because they don't have clear understanding of these policies, they don't know, oh, if I invest in this, will another policy not come tomorrow? Will another ministry not come tomorrow? And it's over. So the minister needs to sit down, look at these things put together. What are the challenges? Which at the roundtable conversation, we had already shared our challenges. We have shared suggestions on how this can work seamlessly.
Find out more about how we can increase indigenous participation and end foreign dominance in the shipping sector by watching Maritime Radar on Saturday, 7 p.m. and a repeat on Sunday, 1 p.m. on New Central Television. In sports, Nigeria women's basketball team, the Tigress, have qualified for the women's basketball event of the 2024 Olympics in Paris. Nigeria booked a place after Belgium defeated Senegal on Friday at the ongoing 2024 Olympics qualification tournament in Belgium. Earlier, the Tigress had lost to the US 100-46 in their second game at the competition, but a favorable result in the other match in the group sent them on their way to Paris. Elsewhere, South African head coach Hugo Broos says the fight for the third position in the 2023 Africa Cup of Nations will be more of a mental battle than anything. The Bafana will face Democratic Republic of Congo in the third-place match at the Felix Houphouët-Boigny Stadium in Abidjan on Saturday. Bruce's side suffered a 4-2 penalty shootout defeat to Nigeria in the semi-final on Wednesday. The Belgian tactician, who guided South Africa to their first semi-final since 2000, said the key to clinching a third-place medal will be how the team mentally recovers from the heart-breaking loss to Nigeria. Now, double Olympic champion Caster Semenya has appealed for funds for a legal battle against regulations requiring female athletes with high testosterone to take medication. Friday's appeal comes as Semenya prepares for a May hearing at the European Court of Human Rights. Last July, the 33-year-old South African athlete won a long legal battle against Switzerland at the court, which ruled she was the victim of discrimination from the Lausanne-based Court of Arbitration for Sports. But Swiss authorities, supported by World Athletics, have taken the matter to the European Court Grand Chamber, whose rulings are binding. Semenya, who is classed as having differences in sexual development but has always been legally identified as a female, has refused to take drugs to reduce her testosterone levels since track and field's governing body World Athletics introduced the original rules in 2018. And that's all at this hour, but before we go, let's take another look at some of our top stories. President Tinubu to attend Diamond Jubilee celebrations of the Nigerian Defense Academy in Kaduna. Student has been confirmed as first death in protests over postponed elections in Senegal. We also told you that a lawyer has said Gabon ex-president's family are suffering abuse in the aftermath of a government overthrow. Do send your eyewitness report to the WhatsApp number and email on your screen, and you can follow us on social media. We are at New Central TV. You can also watch New Central live on DSTV channel 422, Star Times channel 274, Avo TV and YouTube. Many thanks for watching. I am Lekon Onobanjo.